It was April 23, 2018, when Alex Manassian was sitting in a rental van on the side of the road. He took out his phone and opened his Facebook app, where he decided to make a Facebook post. The Incel rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. All hail the supreme gentleman, Elliot Rodger. Alex then started the engine on his white rental van and began to drive down the road, picking up speed as he went. Eventually, he plowed directly into a busy sidewalk, killing 11 people. He jumped out of the van and attempted to commit suicide by cop unsuccessfully and was arrested soon after. I'm pretty sure most of you watching right now condemn this kind of behavior. In fact, I certainly hope that you do. But if you're a man watching right now, I'm also pretty sure that you are acutely aware of a crisis that men are facing in today's society. And the problem is worse the younger the men are. Suicide rates are up. Unemployment is up. Education levels are down. Men are losing their families. Court systems are biased against them. Men are facing larger prison sentences for the same crimes. And the list goes on. And Alex Manassian is really just an indicator of the breaking seams of the fabric of masculine society right now. Now, guys, before I go on, I just want to remind you that less than 40% of my regular viewers are actually subscribed to my channel. And yet the success of my channel thrives on my subscriptions. So please, guys, it does me a ton of good if you go ahead and give me a thumbs up to this video and subscribe. It will help me to grow my channel and produce more content that really helps to change your lives. And it doesn't matter what color your skin, the fact is that all men are suffering right now. Now, I understand that depending on your skin color, you may have it even worse off again, but I want today's video to focus simply on the plight of men in general. And as men around the world are finding themselves facing this crisis, it's not a surprise to me or anyone watching that men are starting to scramble to try to find a way to make life feel better, to make life feel empowered, to make them feel empowered, to try to find answers, to try to enact a change in the world, to try to come together and feel like I'm not suffering with this alone. But as men go on this journey, I think there's something that's really important to remember, and that's this. Just because something feels empowering doesn't make it good for you. Alex Manassian felt 100% empowered when he drove his van into and killed 11 people. A cocaine user feels really empowered after that first hit of cocaine. When you shout at someone because they've pushed you over the edge and you're upset and angry, you feel empowered because you're finally telling them enough is enough and you're getting angry. But that doesn't make it the best course of action for your long-term mental health. And that's the really important thing that I want to discuss today. You see, it is particularly hard when we tend to go on our gut instinct. Okay, if something feels right, especially if something feels justifiably right, then we feel like it must be the correct thing to do. If something makes us feel better, we assume it must be good for us. And so this paradox of it felt good, therefore it isn't necessarily right, is often very counterintuitive. And I know I've opened this video with a really extreme example of someone doing something to feel empowered that is definitely not healthy for them emotionally or physically, and is certainly not helpful for gender relations in the long term. But I see it on a much smaller scale as well. See, I watch a lot of videos about men's well-being, about men's self-development. I watch a lot of videos about this conflict that men have with women. I watch a lot of videos about men's empowerment because I'm keenly aware that men need support and I want to support them, but I need to understand the landscape as well as I can. And I consistently see two types of videos that are the most common type of video to see on these topics. And I think they do a lot of damage because what they do is they forget that just because it's empowering doesn't make it healthy or right. The first is what I typically like to call the gotcha, you stupid woman videos. And in these videos, what happens is very often women are being interviewed, but selectively chosen for these interviews, where they are displaying a really cruel or illogical or double standard based way of viewing the world. And then a man on the other end who is well-educated, knows his facts, and knows how to deal with this kind of woman or speak to this kind of woman will say, this is why what you're doing is so stupid, right? And she'll sit there and get all flustered because there's a disconnect in her own head as she tries to process the truth bomb that he just threw at her. This is a really typical kind of video, and it feels good for guys to watch. If you're disempowered and you feel like you are suffering at the hands of women and you see someone go, gotcha, you stupid woman, that can feel good, okay? It doesn't make it necessarily healthy in the long run. Why? Because it makes women out to be stupid. It makes them out to be the enemy, which is really not the case, but more on that later. But more importantly, it creates a community of guys who view women as the enemy, as the instigator, as the creator of these problems. And it creates generalized feelings about how all women must clearly think and behave. The second type of video that I see a lot is the statistics video. And really what this is a video just like demonstrating a series of actual real statistics from the world. But unfortunately, the statistics are they're cherry-picked. In other words, they're not compared to other research that has been done that's been peer-reviewed on the similar topics. The results of the research are not actually clearly understood. And so really they're just used to try to make a point, try to reinforce what a lot of the viewers already believe. And I'm sure the people doing the video believe that as well. The difficulty is that this rarely ever actually reflects what's actually out there in the research at present. You know, a perfect example, I've done a video on this past, I might link you to it here, but a perfect example is the idea that women who are promiscuity in women degrades their ability to pair bond. And the research doesn't show that. In fact, it shows that either sex, if they are more promiscuous at that point in time, are less likely to be able to, or to want to form long-term relationships without cheating. It clearly shows that it's exactly the same for men and women. Women aren't unique in this. It clearly shows that if there is a space in time between the promiscuous behavior and the formation of a long-term pair bond, in other words, is at least a 6 months to a year plus gap, then all of a sudden the potential for that person to have a successful long-term relationship goes up dramatically. There's a lot of research that shows that if you start removing the statistics that are often used by the advocates of this idea that women shouldn't be having promiscuous sex because it reduces their ability to pair bond, the studies often fail to recognize or account for people who are religious, account for cultural pressures on marriages and shame-based cultural behavior patterns, right? So it doesn't account for a lot of this stuff when it's trying to describe the science behind how women behave once they've been promiscuous in the past. And so, yes, the science is poorly demonstrated in a lot of these videos. And this is, again, dangerous because it gives us a false accounting of the world. But it feels good because it takes responsibility off us. It says that clearly women, women don't really want to be monogamous. Women can't love men the way men love women. Women typically end marriages and they're going to go and try to take all your stuff. It goes for the jugular in a lot of our core fears and feelings. And so again, it creates women as the enemy. It's the perpetrators of the crimes of the, not legal crimes, but the emotional, painful crimes against men. Now, these videos, they're really fun to watch. They're really fun to watch. In the same way that watching a video about ghosts or UFOs is a lot more fun to watch than a video that debunks ghosts and UFOs. And the more you get sucked into these videos, and the more you get sucked into these communities like the Red Pill, the Black Pill, the Incel, the Manosphere arena of different communities that exist, the more empowered you can feel. And it's not just the Manosphere that's affected by this. My industry, the dating coaching industry, is massively impacted here as well. And, you know, it is empowering to be sexually assertive. It is empowering as a man to be sexually assertive on the point of being sexually aggressive. It is empowering. And don't care who's going to try to debate this with me. This is an empowering thing. The problem is that if you push that too far, you're going to be hurting other people, hurting society, and long-term hurting yourself. But I see this all the damn time, especially way back in 2003 when I first got involved in this industry. It was so common. What was the most common thing possible? The way to pick up women was through misdirection and manipulation, right? And that was the way to pick up women. And sure enough, what I saw when I got involved in dating coaching back then, watching guys coaching, was I just saw so many guys who were, yes, they were getting laid, but on the flip side, they had these self-esteem issues ongoing because every time they had a woman like them, what happened in their head was, she doesn't like the real me because I'm pretending to be something that I'm not. So she only likes this fake version of me. So every time a woman likes him, it reinforces I'm not good enough as I am. I have to play games to get a woman. And so there's this whole thing of just because it feels empowering temporarily doesn't mean it's long-term good for you. Thankfully, the industry has been starting to change. I like to think I've been a part of that with the way that I've been coaching guys. And so ultimately, the problem is one of conflict. And there is already too much conflict between men and women. And yes, I think there's a very good argument for saying, well, maybe feminists started it is a weird thing to say because the feminist movement came up because women were repressed. That was a very real thing. But I think a lot of the modern feminism has started to become quite anti-man. It's become very antagonistic more than ever before against men and masculinity. And I do see that. And so you could say, well, women started it, so we're just going to continue it and perpetuate it. But this video is not for women because women aren't my main viewers. It's for the men. You see, if you want to resolve conflict, there is a way to do it. And I've read a lot of books on conflict resolution. And one of the best books that I've read on this topic is by Marshall Rosenberg, and it's called Nonviolent Communication. So the author is an expert in conflict resolution. He's worked with warring nations, warring tribes, family units with massive conflict, situations where whole companies have conflict from the top down, from the bosses all the way down to the employees and resolving those conflicts. He's dealt with racism in schools. He's dealt with relationship conflicts. He's an expert in all these areas. And really the way to resolve conflict is always the same. You see, you cannot resolve conflict while you are stereotyping the other person and their behaviors. You cannot resolve conflict while you're calling them names. You cannot resolve conflict while you're trying to make them feel ashamed for their actions. And you cannot resolve conflict while you're trying to tell the other person what they're thinking and why they're thinking it. This is something that couples, if you've ever been in a relationship, I'm sure you recognize this. When you're having fights, what do? You always do this. You always do that. This started because you did this. We're telling them what we're doing. We're labeling all the things they're doing as something negative. And we're not understanding their story. We're telling them what their story really is. And this is not how you resolve conflict, no matter how mad you are. And it only takes one party. It only takes one party to stop the name calling and start trying to understand the other side. And yes, this could be women or it could be men, but I'm talking to the men right now because the reality is I've met a lot of women. I've purposely reached out to and tried to talk to feminists, to women who identify as feminists. I've spoken to a number of academic feminists, including some of my friends. And yes, there are some extreme feminists out there. They are very far from the normal. In fact, even many women I speak to who identify as feminists are not extreme and nasty and cruel and man-hating as the media, I think, would have you believe. But most women, even then, don't identify as feminists. They're just regular women, and they deeply care about men and men's struggles right now. You only need to reach out and begin to have that discussion. And so I think it's very dangerous to engage in viewing video or audio content or written content that gives you a feeling of moral superiority. I think that's where things become dangerous. When it starts to become making fun of, trying to make someone feel ashamed, it's trying to make someone look like an idiot or foolish. When we start to do that, I think we're on the wrong path. The way to create this change, to stop rewarding videos and content like this, you need to start rewarding content like Richard Reeves, who has amazing content and his amazing book. He is a researcher who cares very much about men's rights, men's emotional health. But he doesn't do that by blaming women. He focuses on where men are struggling, how we can enact social change to help men, not hurt women along the way, not make women look stupid, not try to blame women, but really just help men as part of society because men really matter in society. And by supporting guys like this, guys in academia, guys who have a really solid grasp and done good research on this topic. Now, why do you want to support people like this? Because the more men speak for men's rights from that perspective, the more women will hear it. Okay, because imagine that you are talking to someone who has hurt you. If all you're going to do is go, you're an asshole, I hate you, you're an idiot, you do dumb things, haha, look at you, what a retard. If you do those things, that person's never going to hear your message. Your message will never be heard. But instead, if you say, hey, I'm suffering because I feel these things and these things have occurred. How can we find a solution? You're far more likely to get through. And so we need to start supporting the people who are really going to make the positive change, not the people who are isolating and creating more and more conflict, because I promise you that's only going to make the world a worse place. I hope I haven't alienated guys who are following the red pill, black pill communities. I know that it's a very popular way of thinking. And the last thing I want to do again is create conflict with you and say, ha, what an idiot. No, you're not. You're seeking to feel empowered. You're seeking to feel better about yourself. And I completely understand why. It's hard. I deal with disempowered men every single day of my life because I'm a dating coach and it's disempowered men who come to me. And so I completely understand what you're going through. I really do. And all I want to point out is be careful about what you follow. Be careful about what you choose to believe. The world is hard. There is a crisis for men, but it's not as simple as women are the big bad enemy. I think the second that we adopt that mindset, we cannot find a solution. Because by seeing women as the enemy, we forget that women have their own struggles. Women have their own stuff that they suffer with at the hands of men too. We are all in this together. We're all going through something together. And this is not like a, kumbaya, everybody is nothing but pure love kind of conversation. People are doing wrong things. Some guys are, some women are, but more than that, society is. Society is creating a culture that is antagonistic towards men, and we need to start having that conversation. And we need to have it like grown-ass adults, not like hurt little children. And I think that a lot of the publishers of content that laughs at women, I think that's kind of a childish tactic. The people who watch it can't be blamed. You're struggling, you're trying to find a voice, and you found it. But the people who produce that content, I think that's a serious problem. So guys, I hope you found today interesting. I go ahead and write in the comments below. Again, I always say this to guys, I'm happy to have a conversation about these topics. So long as it's logical and we're not just like calling each other names, I'll jump in and have a chat with you about it. If you've liked this video, again, as I said before, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It helps me a ton. And that would be greatly appreciated. So I look forward to seeing you guys in my future videos, and I will see you then.